zalegalizovat žolio.
Siema, Spliff TV. Dzisiaj jest z nami Mr. Jose, autor niesamowitych książek Jak uprawiać indoor i Jak uprawiać outdoor, które na naszym wschodnioeuropejskim rynku były zupełnym przełomem. Hi man.
Witam polskich rolników, zapraszam do lektury moich książek. Nie umiem dobrze polskiego, więc będziemy rozmawiać po angielsku.
Yes, yes. Could you introduce yourself for the Polish viewers?
Yes, I'm a Czech guy. I started to smoke weed and grow weed when I was, I think, 11 or 12. I started smoke earlier a little bit, but grow I started it when I was 19, and since that time I got lots of experiences with it, and as the time goes, I started to write some articles to some Czech magazines, and then I started to write a book. So I published it in Czech, and 2 years ago I started to publish the books also in Poland.
Okay. How long did it take to write those books?
Indoor book, I wrote maybe 3 years, and outdoor book it was a little bit quicker, so I wrote it maybe 1.5 years.
Okay. And what can we find inside of these books?
So I can start with Jak uprawiać indoor. Inside you will find complete information how to set up a grow room and how to reach the success inside. So you will get lots of information how to choose a good light, how to set up your private room, or which prepared box you can buy, and also lots of about the watering and to solve the problems with all the diseases and beetles and things like this. So I think there are all informations you need to go from the very beginning to the perfect harvest. And outdoor book is about outdoor growing. So you can grow your flowers outside, and you will find information how to choose a good place for your growing, for your plants, how to take care of the plants, how to grow in greenhouses or outside, small flowers or bigger flowers. You also find there informations about outdoor flowering strains, which are very popular now. You will find this information also in indoor book about outdoor flowering strains, but I think that outdoor flowering strains are better for outdoor. Yeah, so you will find everything you need, I think, inside.
Me, it's like I know this book in some ways, and what was very for me, like it was yes interesting, and also I found it that you were making really researchers in the Institute of Prague, yes, and you work, it's a real science. It's more like science than like hobby, and I know that you've done a lot of researches and you even work with this institute. I want to ask you about this.
Yeah, when I wrote first book, Jak uprawiać indoor, when I wrote it in Czech language, I found that there are lots of questions about around light. So I started to find the answers for these questions, and I didn't find anyone who can answer it. So I started to search for instruments with which I can measure how much light you will get from from different bulbs and in different conditions. And I found that these instruments are, but it's very expensive. So I found in Prague Electrotechnical Institute, and they were able to test all the bulbs and all the growing tents. So it was really expensive. So I first asked some partners, which helped me to publish the book. So I asked them to give me some money to do this research, and I found some companies, especially Advanced Hydroponic of Holland. They gave me lots of money, because it was very important for me to find a company which is not involved in light. I didn't want sponsor from light industry or tent industries. So I got the money, and then I made a plan how to do it. I found Electrotechnical Institute. Of course, I don't want to talk about the using of these results for growing community, but at the end I said it to them, and they had no problem with it. So the results, I think are very useful for growers, because in the shops usually you heard that silver materials are better for light reflection. The funny is that it wasn't the point of research to find if white is better than silver. It was side effect. I found it accidentally. Yeah, because I wanted to test the bulbs and LED lights and fluorescent lights, and during the research I found that in silver tent we get not as good results as in white tents. So first I saw that I made a mistake during the research, so I did it again, and I got the same results. And then we did it for the third time, and we get the same results again, so we published it. And yeah, it was very, very good information for growers, because at the time the silver tents were more expensive, white tents were cheaper, and I have to say that if you use good quality foil, even if you don't use tents, if you use only foil, if you use a good white foil, it's much better than silver, always.
And because some of the foils, they have the facture like different, and those textures does not like diamond and all that. Does it work? How was with your researchers? What did you find out?
I understand what you mean. I cannot say that the silver material is completely bad. It's not true. But if you saw the results, you can see that diamond foil is not so bad. But good quality white foil, as for example Orca is, or you can find on the market very good quality black and white foil, it's better than silver, definitely, always. Because if you will see the very professional setting in industry growing companies which don't grow the flowers we are, but they grow regular flowers in laboratory conditions, always you will find there white walls, because white is the most reflecting color in we know, you know. So it's not silver, it's white, and always it was. So if you ask some people who is physic, so if you ask the professionals, they will tell you that white material is the most reflective material in the world. So it's easy, it's true.
Yeah, okay, and also your researches and what you found is it's like revolutionary to the growing business.
Yes, definitely. I think that nobody did the research like this before in these conditions, like, because if you nobody built it a tent before, put some desk inside, and did the test like this. Yeah. So I think it's useful because it's in real conditions. It's measured in real conditions. Your flowers will be in a tent in the same place as the sensor was. So the results are really useful for growing, definitely.
And we will also want to ask you about the bulbs. Which bulbs are the best? What you think? Because we have only few kinds of bulbs in this. So, what the expert like Mr. Jose can say about the bulbs?
You are not the first one who asked me this question, especially after the testing. It's really hard to say. Yes, when I published it, lots of people ask me, so which bulb is the best? It's not easy to say. I personally trust to the old brands as Osram is and Philips, because it's really professional in their branch. But you also get good results from Jeep bulbs. Yeah, it's very similar. You can see the results are when you test it in lab. You can see the results are the same as if you use Osram or Philips. But yeah, if I will go to the shop and I will buy a lamp, I will definitely buy Osram. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my idea.
Okay, so let's talk about situation in Czech when you have, like, for me, I think better laws for the people who are just herbalists and all that. We were also wondering if the situation in Czech maybe it somehow inspire you to start such a work, and I want to ask you about this.
Yeah. So
Because it's completely different here in Poland when everything is completely banned. Oczywiście chciałbym dodać też, że ta książka nie wolno uprawiać po prostu w Polsce. Nie wolno uprawiać, dlatego tą książkę możemy spokojnie zabrać do Holandii, do Czech, do Hiszpanii, tam sobie zamieszkać, wykorzystać te rady zawarte w nich. Niestety w Polsce nie możemy tego robić, jest to bardzo zabronione, jak wiemy. I want to ask you about situation in Czech, which is really different than in Poland, and I was wondering if maybe somehow it inspire you to make such a work. And I'm asking you this because here in Poland we have everything practically banned, and it's kind of different. It's kind of different. People don't talk so openly about this kind of things.
yes, I know that in Poland this situation completely different. It's not the first time I'm here. So I heard experiences of from you and from other people from Poland, and yeah, situation at our country and my country is a little bit different, but when I wrote this book, you know, I had some good experience with wheat. I like growing, and I had health problems, and wheat helped me a little bit, not a little bit, but it helped me go through the chemotherapy. So I felt that I owe something to this flower. So I started to grow, started to write it, also to help other people who needs help with who needs help from wheat, how to grow it by their own, because it's the easier way how to get it, because it's unable to get this flower from pharmacy or from a doctor, unfortunately. And yeah, and it's flower, everybody can grow flower, so I knew how to do it, so I tell it to other people. Of course I was a little bit afraid. Of course I didn't know what the government or policeman will do, that I knew that I can go to jail, maybe, I don't know. I believed that I cannot, but it was a kind of risk. But I didn't do anything bad. Writing a book is not a crime, I believe.
Writing books is not a crime. Yes, like skateboarding is not a crime.
Yes, definitely.
That's great, man. And what else? What else? Oh yes, I know. Medical patients in Czech. How it is in your country, which I think is more freedom for the people, and here being a medical patient of marijuana is also a crime. And I want to ask you about this. Maybe first there were people who were using cannabis just for the medicine, and then the liberalization came, or it was another way. I don't know.
The cannabis is a natural part of our history, especially in Central Europe. We grew it for 4 years. Also, of course, it came from India and from that part, but it has history in Central Europe, and I believe that people will come back to the roots, and also is using the herbs to heal the people. Yeah, so I think that first the people have to know that it's not a drug, it's a medicine that can help people with pain and with lots of other problems. My English is not so good to tell all the things hemp can helps you, but you can explain it later. So first people have to believe that it's good, and then it goes from the down, not from the government. It's nothing good from government, never. First it's up to the people who works and who need to solve regular problems also with their health, and from down it goes up, it will not come from government.
Dziękujemy bardzo, Jose. Dziękujemy wam za uwagę. To jest Spliff TV. Zostańcie z nami, a na zakończenie mamy dla was konkurs.
So, question is, which insect produced webs on the plants in your grow room?
Pytanie brzmi, jaki szkodnik produkuje pajęczynę, która zostaje w pomieszczeniu uprawowym? I pierwsze 3 osoby, które odpowiedzą na to pytanie prawidłowo oczywiście, dostaną od pana Jose koszulkę i książkę. Natomiast ostatnie 2 osoby, które odpowiedzą prawidłowo na to pytanie, dostaną od pana Jose książkę. Dziękujemy bardzo, dziękujemy za uwagę, dziękujemy Josemu. To jest Spliff TV, zostańcie z nami. Brep.
Dziowo!
Zalegalizować.
Zalegalizować dziowo!
Drzewo
Jest.
zalegalizować, motherfuckers.